Anyway, good morning, everyone. Thank you very much for joining us for our session this morning. So today, what we're going to be doing is really introducing you to our new hormone test. Now, this isn't a perfectly polished webinar. It's really, I suppose it's more of an announcement and telling you what we're doing, why we're doing it, and what to expect next, because we've got some brilliant education lined up, which I'll talk through as we go through this morning. So what we're going to cover? Well, we're going to recap the FIT test for those of you who aren't familiar with it. We're going to talk about why we've decided to, I suppose, creep into the world of hormone testing, introduce our new test, which is called the Hormone Insights Test. I'm going to show you a sample report, and then I'm going to talk about the education that we have and how we're going to support you around the test. But before we started, I did say, please ask questions as you go. I've got the lovely Emily, who is there to answer any questions that you might have, but also feel free to interrupt me, or Emily, you can interrupt me, and we can go through those as we go. So there's no need to hold on to your questions till the end, because as I said, this isn't a polished webinar. It's more of an introduction to what to expect, really. So hopefully you know most of us by now. This is a quick introduction to the team. I'm Charlotte Hunter, I'm head of KPMO UK, and then we have some wonderful practitioners who are all nutritional therapists. Lynette isn't, but she is a customer services genius, and who's just laughed in the background as I said that. But we've got Kelly, who does a lot of the events with me. We have Claire, who I'm sure a lot of you are familiar with, who does our support. We've got Natasha, who, again, I'm sure you've spoken to, and we have Emily as well, who is on the call today. So, as you all know, or maybe don't know, we have the food inflammation test, which is our main test. This has been our bread and butter for quite a long time now. In the UK, we've gone direct to practitioners for 4 years, actually more than 4 years now, which is hard to believe. But we have the FIT test, and here's a quick summary of our tests. So we've got the FIT 22, which covers 22 food sensitivities, including the big ones like gluten, cow's milk, egg, the FIT 132, the 176, and the gut barrier panel. And all of those panels now include the gut barrier, which looks at zonulin, candida, occludin, and LPS. So hopefully you're familiar with the test. And I know that some of you do order regularly, so thank you for supporting us. This is an overview of what we're testing. So we try and really use, I suppose, real world foods, things that people are eating. We try not to put weird things on there that people just don't eat, which you find on a lot of reports. And we use finger prick bloods measuring IgG 1 to 4 plus C3D complement. So looking at the exposure and then also that immune response as well. All of our reports are a traffic light system, so it's really easy for patients to follow and practitioners. So there's no need to have really complicated long support calls or feel like you have to wait weeks and weeks to speak to someone. Most of the time you can figure this out yourself, and of course we've got our support in place as well. The report, again, nice and straightforward, easy to read. As I said, it's color-coded, it's client-friendly. The interpretation is fairly straightforward as well. And what we want to do is really support you to be as efficient in practice as possible, so you get better outcomes for your client, and also you're building your own practices as well. So one of the reasons I've decided just to give that quick review is it just allows the people who are still joining us to catch up. The gut barrier panel, as I mentioned, again, this is something that we're really proud of. It really is something slightly different in this space at such a brilliant price point as well. So this comes with all of the reports now. And even the FIT 22, which you may not have realised, you can order the FIT 22 now to include the gut barrier panel. And I thought it was worth really just very, very briefly, and that was brief, wasn't it, to cover the food sensitivity test, because it really fits with our ethos around testing. We're passionate about things being straightforward, practical, things that you can use in your practice. And although behind the scenes, it's really, really complex science, on the surface, you're getting information that you can use and you can apply to your clients and your work. And some of the reasons why you might choose those sensitivities, well, I mean, it could be anything, couldn't it? So I've got on this list here, we've got weight loss and thyroid, digestive, hormonal in the middle there, skin, I've done that twice, that should be bones, brain fog, fatigue, migraines. So lots and lots of different conditions, symptoms, history, family history that might drive you to look at food sensitivities. And really it's this middle bit, the hormone bit, that keeps coming up time and time again. I work solely with menopausal clients and I run fit tests on all of them. Why? Because there seems to be a huge correlation between those changes to the gut barrier and what we see happening in perimenopause and menopause. And the subject of hormones just kept coming up. I mean, probably partly because of me, because that's what I'm interested in. That's the main area of my work. And it just, as a team, we talked about this as well. And I've worked with hormones for years, particularly some of the big name urine hormone panels. I don't need to mention their names, you know them. They've been incredibly useful. But I think there've been a lot of changes recently in some of their formatting, their reporting, their support. And I personally feel like I've fallen out of love with them a bit. And that is my own personal view. I'm not naming and shaming, but I just feel like I've sort of lost my groove a little bit when it comes to the hormone tests. I think some of them have become harder to interpret. They don't always give clear, straightforward answers. And I'm very experienced in hormone testing, but I just feel, that there had to be a different way. And I think if I'm feeling that, and I know the team, some of them have said the same, I'm guessing that some of you may do as well. So I think the big question really is, do the tests still give you the insights that you need at the price that works for your practice, that's leading to better client outcomes, but also supporting your practice financially? And I think that is quite a big question, isn't it? Or lots of questions within a big question, I guess. And as I said, I think there is another way, and hopefully we found that. It's really easy to get stuck in a rut using the same tests just because you're familiar with them. And I've done that, I'm speaking from experience. I've done the same tests for years. I've built courses around those tests, and I've spent the last 7, I don't know, maybe 8 years educating and mentoring practitioners around those particular tests. But it doesn't mean that they're still the best option or the only option. And I think that's where the new test that we're providing, which we've called the Hormone Insights Test, which is actually run by ZRT, which is their advanced, I can never even say it, Advanced Urine Hormone Metabolites Test. Now you understand why we've called it the HIT test, because I can't pronounce it. We had to do some videos recently, and I must have messed it up about 20 times because I just couldn't say Advanced Urine Hormone Metabolites Test without sounding like a robot. So I think this is where this new test does come in, and I suppose you could say it's a fresh approach. It's not a new approach, but it's a fresh approach for us without all the baggage and the problems that I've had with other tests. So I guess today I'm going to show you why we don't have to go Dutch anymore. That's the only time I'm going to say Dutch, I promise. So let's talk about the test then. It's we're calling it the HIT test for the reasons that I've just explained, and it stands for Hormone Insights Test, and it was developed by ZRT Laboratory. ZRT might be new to some of you, certainly in the context of hormone testing, but they're not new in terms of their science. In fact, they developed the very first urine metabolites hormone test, which was the foundation that all of the others were built on. So you could say this was the original urine metabolites test. So this isn't a fad, it's not a knockoff, we're not copying other tests. This is the original lab with a proven track record, which we're now partnering with to bring you their latest testing approach. And what we're getting is the combination of ZRT's scientific credibility with our practitioner, I suppose our practitioner first support model. And when it comes to hormone metabolite testing, this is really what it's all about. This is what you're measuring. This is what we're trying to understand, decipher, and really work out how those pieces fit together. And if they're not fitting together, why might that be happening? And do you need to learn this off by heart? Well, no, but I think if you want to be the best practitioner you can possibly be, then yes, you absolutely should. And there'll be a test next week. I'm joking, by the way, but you knew that. So what are we measuring? Well, we get the key parent hormones, so the estrogens, progesterone, androgens, cortisol, plus all their metabolites. So this means you don't just see a snapshot of hormone levels. So you're not just going to have a list of your total hormones. You're also seeing how those hormones are being processed and metabolized. Again, this isn't new. This is what you're seeing in some of the hormone tests you're using already. So you do get a genuinely comprehensive panel, but it's in a format that's really quite simple to read once you've done a test and you've had a walkthrough and you can see how it's presented. I'm not going to read out all these markers, but we are offering more tests. So we've got 44 unique markers, and that's more comprehensive and more markers than other labs on the market. There's more estrogens, more androgens. Also BPA, which isn't measured by many labs. Obviously, there's lots of other plastics and what have you, but generally, it's a marker which can be incredibly useful. We're looking at cortisol and diurnal melatonin. Now, in most hormone panels that you're familiar with, you generally get melatonin as a one-off marker, which I think is less insightful. With this, you're getting diurnal, so you can look at it throughout the testing period. So in some of the other tests, yes, your melatonin might be high or low, but it's a single marker, and therefore I think can sometimes just be a bit so what? What does it tell you as a single marker? I remember urine testing is determined by how, if your clients mess up the test, they drink too much water, they don't drink enough water. Yes, the values can be adjusted by the lab, but as a standalone marker, it can be a bit misleading. So overall, we've got more markers, which hopefully provides more insight and hopefully also more clinical value. And I've just briefly spoken about those. And you can see all this information on our website. And so far I've talked about what we do cover, which is the most important bit. But what about the things that we don't cover? And one of the things you might have noticed is that I haven't mentioned organic acids. And I did want to talk about this because organic acids on some of the other hormone tests are an add-on. They're sort of a bonus, I guess, but I think there are a few things to be aware of. And I think firstly is their limited scope. So they only include a small set of organic acids, so around 8 or 9, I can't remember the exact number, mainly neurotransmitter metabolites, VMA, is it HVA, and then there's a few nutrient-related markers as well, so B12, B6, glutathione. And in contrast, a full organic acid panel typically runs 70 plus markers, so covering things like mitochondrial health, dysbiosis, oxalates, fatty acid metabolism, etc. So those tests where you've only got a handful are a tiny, tiny little snapshot. They're not a broad metabolic overview. I think also their interpretation is context limited. So the panel is small, patterns are harder to interpret in isolation. So for example, B6, that might be due to low intake, metabolism, gut issues, but without the supporting markers, you can't really pinpoint the cause. The same with the neurotransmitters. Those metabolites can shift due to stress, diet, gut microbiota, but again, there's not enough information surrounding that data to give clarity. And also, I think it's not really a true replacement for a full organic acid profile. Some practitioners seem to think that those markers can be a substitute for a full oat panel. I don't think they can. As I said, they're just an adjunct. They're a bonus, not a standalone diagnostic tool. And I think because of that, there's a risk of overinterpretation. And just because they're presented alongside the steroid hormones, I think we can jump to conclusions and we can overinterpret those really small shifts to fit what we want to see to present to our client. I'm not saying that everyone does that. It's just, I think there's an opportunity there for that to happen. And I think it's particularly true of the neurotransmitters and the inflammatory markers as well. Now, the reason I'm mentioning that is because KPMO are looking to launch an organic acid profile earlier for the US, and then we're going to be looking at doing that further down the line. So again, that's something else that will be another piece in, I suppose, the diagnostic puzzle that we're presenting. So yes, we are releasing a test, but also just be aware that when you're using those very, very small panels, they can be a bit misleading. So why is Hormone Insights Test different, and why should we be excited about it? Well, personally, I'm really excited about it. I think it's giving us more relevant data. For example, it provides a much better insight into progesterone metabolism. This is a hormone that is so central to women in perimenopause and menopause, certainly the work that I do, but it's often poorly presented in other reports. And when you look at our education webinars, which I'll tell you about as we go through, we do have some more information around that. Secondly, the reports themselves, I think, are a breath of fresh air. They're not new, but again, a breath of fresh air. So instead of, I don't know, spaghetti diagrams and biochemical maps and all sorts, you just get clear bar charts and graphs and reference ranges, and you can literally see the story at a glance. Now, for those of you who are really experienced in some of the other hormone panels, it can take a little bit of time just to adjust to a new layout, but essentially the information is going to be very, very similar. Obviously, there are a few differences. The other thing that is great about this test is, again, like many of the others, it's an at-home collection. So it's convenient, it's non-invasive, and just like the dried blood spot testing with a FIT test, there's no complicated protocols. And also the cost. So we've tried to make this accessible as possible. For many of our clients, we know that testing comes with a cost barrier. So what we try to do is make the HIT test sit at a price point that makes it more feasible for your clients without compromising the data and reducing what you're looking at. And why urine? And why dried? Well, as I've said, it's non-invasive, an easy way to evaluate hormone activity in detox. It's showing levels, pathways, and it's revealing how your hormones are used, how they're being cleared. And of course, as I've said before, ZRT pioneered the science-backed method and continues to lead the field with this particular way of testing. So when should you consider the HIT? Well, anything hormone related. So for example, family history of hormone-dependent conditions or cancers, adrenal issues, hormone imbalance, weight gain, insomnia, stress, symptoms of PCOS, so acne, facial hair, endometriosis, fibroids, anything that's hormone related, really. Symptoms of perimenopause, menopause, is your client on HRT? Are they thinking about HRT? Symptoms of estrogen imbalances as well. And that's whether they're on or they're off HRT. So I've got some sample reports for you. So I'm not going to go through this in any detail, and I'll explain why in a moment, but it's just to give you an overview. As I said, this session was really an introductory session for you. But as you can see, it's just a simple reference range, and you can see where those numbers sit. And again, we've got the graphs showing the cortisol, the free cortisol, and the melatonin as well. And again, you can see on those bars where your client is. So a complex test, but actually quite refreshing to see it in such a straightforward report. And there's more information there. So there's a questionnaire, and your client's symptoms are mapped on here as well, which is really great when you're comparing tests. So when you do your next test, you can look at this at a glance. And I don't need to tell you about the power of at-home testing. And there's also sample reports on our website, so you can go back and have a look at that. Like I said, I'm just going through this top level really. And I feel like I need to talk about this again, because this is a really strong value for KBMO. You know, we're passionate about being able to do your testing at home. And one of the things I love about the HIT is just how practical it is for our clients. So it's using urine collection, so dried urine strips, which I'm sure a lot of you are familiar with. You can do it at home, no clinic visits, no blood draws, no jugs, no 24-hour collections, none of that business, which also makes a huge difference to compliance. So clients are more likely to follow through, they're going to complete their test correctly, and we all know that compliance is half the battle. I don't know about you, but I've often had test kits that have sat on my shelf for far too long before I've actually kicked myself up the bum and actually done them. So if we can make the collections easy as possible, that can certainly help. It's really great as well that, unlike a lot of labs, you don't have to stop your hormones or your supplements to use the testing, because ranges are adjusted for age, your menstrual status, your supplement types, etc. And this is really great method, I think, for, I suppose, not stressing out your client. And actually, if you think about it, when you call up some of the labs, you say, how long do I have to stop this supplement? And the standard response is always 2 weeks. I mean, where has 2 weeks come from? I used to say it when I used to work for one of the labs. Yeah, 2 weeks, everything was 2 weeks. But actually, if you're taking a supplement, the effects aren't going to stop if you stop the supplement for 2 weeks. You know, the effects of that supplement may extend much, much further than that. And I had lots of conversations with Dutch. I've said it again. I've only said it twice. I've said it twice, maybe 3 times. And Dr. Debbie Rice, who I used to speak to a lot, she always said, look, if you stop a supplement after 2 weeks, it's not going to do anything. Chances are the effect, if it's hormonal, are likely to be 3 months. So if you want a really, really, really perfectly clean result, tell your client to stop taking their magnesium for 3 months. I mean, that's not going to go down very well, is it? So just question the 2 weeks thing. So yes, so just back, I completely went off track there. So there's nothing complicated about the test. The timing can be a bit tricky, but we've got information to share with you about that. And in the education webinar, we talk about that as well. But you're collecting urine on filter strips at 4 time points during the day. The strips are stable, so you know, getting them back to the lab is no issue if you're posting them in the mail. And on the subject of support, this isn't just about handing you your results, leaving you to figure it out. When you run your first test, you'll get a one-to-one walkthrough, so you can build your confidence in interpreting the results and then applying them to your clients in practice. We're also going to run our weekly Hormone Help Hour, which is a group coaching call where you can bring your cases along, ask questions, learn from real world examples. It's going to be supportive, practical, collaborative. And plus we work with lots of supplement companies as well. So you are going to get some clear, actionable strategies that you can use with your clients. And I think education has always been one of our top values at KBMO. And integration of the HIT test is no different. We want to make sure that you're confident and supported every step of the way. However, what we're not going to do is go through every single test with you, because what I found as a practitioner is that you don't learn about the test because you're just waiting for someone to tell you what to do. And I think the interesting thing is that all of you are qualified, intelligent, and you know enough. But it's how to apply that in practice. And I think that's what we really want to work on and support our practitioners with. And of course, we're always at the end of the phone or email if you do need some help. Now, I've mentioned this a few times. We have the magnificent Dr. Shania Sieber, who has joined us to really help us with some of the education. And she's pre-recorded 3 absolutely brilliant webinars. We're going to be sharing that with you over the next couple of weeks, so you can just go through the reports and the test step by step. She's also included a brilliant case study, which brings all of the other information to light. Shania is an absolute pro, so she's done a great job, and I hope you'll enjoy watching those webinars as much as I did. And I think Shania's hiding on the call somewhere, but thank you very much, Shania. So like I said, we'll be sharing those with you. In terms of practicalities, how much does it cost? Well, the practitioner price is $249 and the retail price is $299. So we've tried to price ourselves somewhere between the Dutch Complete and the Dutch Plus. Okay, that's up to 4 times now. So just so it sits in the middle there. And the postage is free, as it is with all of our testing within the UK. So in Europe, we are working on something very exciting, which hopefully we'll be able to tell you about soon. And yeah, we just want to make it as easy as possible for you. So what are your next steps? Well, firstly, you can order your test. And once you get your results, you can have your first one-to-one session. You can also bring your cases and questions to the Hormone Help Hour. And also, we want you to enjoy those brilliant webinars with Shania. And today's session's really been about the why, really why hormone testing matters, why the HIT test is different, and really why KBMOs bring this to you. But I think, this is just the start. This is just an introduction. And like I said, I'd love you to see the webinars and see how looking at the test more in depth and looking at the case study in particular will help you translate all of this into how you can integrate into your practice. So I guess the real learning starts here, doesn't it? I think for us as well as you, but I'm really excited about it. I think it's a great test, and it takes that complexity away. Obviously the information is complex, but in terms of the presentation and how we use it, I think I'm really passionate about practitioners not spending hours on support calls with labs. That's not going to help your practice. It's not going to help you build your practice either. There's information out there, there's education there, which we can share with you. And we have got an ongoing education program throughout the rest of the year. But what we really want you to do is use this in practice, because that's how you learn. So overall, I suppose that the point I want to make is that hormone testing doesn't have to be overwhelming. I think with the HIT test, you get the insights that actually matter, and it's presented in a way that's easy for you to understand, to share with your clients and put into action straight away. You're not going to be on your own. You'll have the support from us with your first report. You've got weekly education sessions, and also the Hormone Help Hour, which I mentioned. But what we want to do is provide access to a community of practitioners that are working together to make hormones, I suppose, simpler so that it can be applied in practice. So as I said, it's the start of something new, and it's a bit cheesy, but smarter testing makes better outcomes and hopefully make you more efficient and confident in your practice. So thank you very much for joining us today. I hope that's just been like I said, a brief overview of what to expect. And I'm really excited to see where we can take this test, but also how you can use it in your practice as well. Before we go, I do want to mention our next webinar, which is Tuesday, the 16th of September at 10 a.m., where we're going to be joined by Dr. Shania, again, the new KBMO superstar, and we're going to be looking at a digestive deep dive. So we're looking at two tests together, so the KBMO fit test alongside the gut ID test, and really just see the value that those two tests together can bring. Because we're often asked about stool testing after a practitioner's ordered a fit test, or they'll say, well, should I order a stool test or should I order a fit test? Or should I order both? Or if I do order a stool test, which one should I use? So we can hopefully answer some of those questions for you as well. So thank you very much. If you have any questions, please email us, or you can check out the hit page on the KBMO Diagnostics website, the UK site. It's not available in the US. And also we're on Instagram. So if you're not following us, why not follow us? Thanks, everyone.
Charlotte,
Yeah.
we have a few questions in the chat that I thought we could bring up just for the benefit of anyone watching the recording.
Okay. Yeah.
Couple of things you have already touched on, but we have two great opposing questions actually. Can we order the tests on behalf of clients rather than keeping them in stock? And then we've got another question saying, is it possible to order test kits in and keep them in stock rather than order one at a time?
Right. So you can do both. What you need to do is email us and tell us. So if you want to keep stock, yes, you can. We'll have to talk about that because it's sort of a case by case, how many you're going through, how many you're using, it's not really a straightforward answer. And no, you absolutely don't need to keep stock. You can order via our website. So if you go to the UK, if you go to kbmodiagnostics.co.uk, you have your practitioner ID, which you pop into the website, and then you can order what you want. Now you can send that direct to your client. So you can just order as you need and we'll drop ship them.
Can clients order tests and give a clinician code or not?
Not at the moment. No. That's something that we're working on, but it's not something that's available right now.
Okay, great. Thank you. Another quick question. I think you mentioned the support call, the initial support call with the first test. Can you tell us how easy will it be to get a support call to go through that first report?
Yeah, it should be relatively easy. Yep. Just getting quick. Just getting quick. So maybe when you've ordered your test, plan ahead and book that session in maybe 2 or 3 weeks.
Yes. And when we send you the recording, I can include a link to book a call as well. The link was included in the email that you'll have all got last week introducing the test as well.
Yeah.
Let me just check I haven't missed anything. Where are the reference ranges from? Are these still based on optimal inverted commas sex hormone ranges for fertile women? Did I hear you say there are adjusted reference ranges?
Yeah, the values are adjusted. What we can do, we can send some more information on that, and also have a look at the sample reports as well. But we can send that information on.
Great. And what's the turnaround for results, turnaround time?
About 2 weeks. It's always 2 weeks. Standard lab response, everything's 2 weeks.
Great. I think, unless please unmute yourselves if I've missed any of your questions, and fire away quickly before we finish.
Emily, can I just ask a quick question? On the chat, you mentioned customs. Could you just expand a little bit? Is that for any country, all countries, or is that a case-by-case basis? It was a little bit unclear.
So this was the question about ordering for France. Is it possible to order for France? Yes, it is. And just mentioned that just to be aware that any importation tax that may be applied by any EU country isn't included within the the practitioner test price, so the price of the test. Also, within the UK, we send tests out with a prepaid return envelope. That's not the case for EU orders, but as Charlotte mentioned, very shortly we're going to have an EU partner anyway that will sort of overtake issues like that.
It's imminent. So, if you are in Europe or Ireland, don't panic because we've got a solution coming very, very soon. So as soon as we're allowed to release that information, you will all be the first to know.
But in the meantime, you can still order,
Yeah.
can't you, for those
Absolutely.
countries? Thank you. I think that is everything.
Excellent. Thanks, everyone. If you do have any questions, we'll hang around for another sort of 5-10 minutes if you have any burning questions.